All right, everyone, welcome to the Kubernetes 1.8 release burndown meeting for Friday, September 22nd, 2017. I am Jay Singer-Dumars, release team leader, and we are going to be going over the agenda and meeting notes that is located at the URL bit.ly/kates18release. And you can see all the things that we're going over there. Today is the day where we are going to review lifting code freeze and assess the health of the release as it stands right now. For those in attendance here right now, can you go into the document and add your name that you were attendance? And we'll go from there. So to visit the timeline, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we've got this available for everybody. So to look at where we're at here, the goal that we set slightly over a week ago for today was to be in a situation where we're evaluating the final issues. And essentially, we wanted to know if there are any release blockers in place, and if so, how does that impact the ability to cut a release candidate? Also, does it have a strong effect on the release date? So those are some of the things we'll talk about and discuss here in a bit. Assuming that we go through the process today and decide that we want to lift code freeze, which I think is probably likely, we will go through and about 12 p.m. Pacific time do the final fast forward from master, and we'll be able to get some results for the 1.8 release branch and see sort of what those tests look like. Then at roughly 1600 hours Pacific, we'd lift the code freeze, and that means that we would do the PR to reopen the MIT-Q and do the restart. And then after that, we would cut the 1.9.0 alpha 1 branch so that we can begin feature work on 1.9 in earnest. And after that, we apply cherry pick candidate labels to the PRs that have milestone 1.8 but not merged. And right now, I think there's 5 of those. So, and then later we would cut the 1.0.0 beta 2 from 1.8 branch. I'm not sure if that's still accurate or not. Okay, so the help wanted here, we'll go through basically just to get everybody getting all the eyes on these tests. There are a couple of things that emerged that are a little troubling that we'll have to look at in terms of issues that are open right now. And we'll go over those individually in a moment. But essentially, if we do open the merge queue, I'd love to have a lot of eyes on things this weekend so that we can make sure that things are progressing and that we haven't horribly broken anything, because the branching occasionally does cause some issues there, and I want to make sure this MIT-Q is healthy as people start hopefully catching up on 1.9 velocity. So any questions thus far about where we're at? All right, so moving along, the timeline for next week is still planned for a Wednesday release. And we'll have to assess that today and Monday and Tuesday. My personal confidence on hitting that date right now feels like about 80%. I would love to have anybody else's opinion on what they think the chance or likelihood that we'd hit that date is. Anybody on the release team? Eric, Caleb, Steve? Just your gut feeling on it?
So a big part of the release, I guess, is the fact that we have to have some number of successive runs of the end-to-end and upgrade tests before doing the actual release. The end-to-end tests have been looking quite good.
Can you scoot closer to the mic, Eric? I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
Oh, sorry about that. So part of the release is that the end and upgrade test must pass some number of times before we can actually call it a release and get it out the door. The end-to-end tests have been looking really good lately, and I feel confident about them being able to perform that and going green. The upgrade tests have been somewhat more flaky. I know in the past we've sort of lifted the restriction on the upgrade tests needing to go green 3 times in a row for us to actually cut the release. But I think from the testing perspective, at least, it matters about how we approach that. And if we decide that yes, it must go green 3 times or not. I think that if we just relied on the end-to-end test, I'm also sort of with you at about the 80% side of things. If we have a requirement that the upgrade tests all have to pass, then I'm less confident.
Okay. I think part of that is to do whatever we can to assess what are non-deterministic flakes. So.
It's much.
Oh, go ahead.
It's much easier with the end-to-end tests because they run much more frequently. With upgrade tests, because some of those suites only run 2 times a day, it becomes harder for us to identify what's our real flakes or what are less common flakes, I want to say.
Right. Okay. So just ballpark, you feel about the same?
Yeah.
Okay. Caleb, I trust your intuition on these things. What do you feel as far as likelihood of hitting the date?
It's based. My take, it should be fine now. My take would be essentially Eric's, just basically around the CI signal. I think we may know a little bit more from the code trees, but not much. I guess also the user-facing products, the release notes are still looks like at least another day's worth of work. Not every SIG has fully finished yet. And so in terms of meeting Wednesday, yeah, I would say 70-ish% confident.
Okay. Okay. All right. And Steve, from a documentation standpoint, how do you feel just confidence about Wednesday? What does that feel to you?
I feel like about the same, about 80%. We have 12 PRs, and they're all, the ball's in someone else's court, either tech review issues or doc review issues. I can imagine those being all cleared up by Wednesday, but I think more likely Friday.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So, okay. So I think it's good and bad that we're all fairly consistent here in terms of confidence on this. All right. Well, let's see how today shakes out. So I just want to go over the metrics real quick, just where we're at, and then I want to go back and revisit the code freeze. So open issues right now, we have 8. You can see that, interestingly, it wasn't a static thing from yesterday, that we actually had some movement in different areas. So this is typical that you'll see in the closing gyrations of a release, where you have a lot of moving parts right at the end. One of these, and I think, Nikki, I think, is here in this meeting, correct? Is that right, Nikki Jindal? He was. Essentially, this issue 52811, 52811 came up late. This is something we're going to need to keep a close eye on, but essentially one of the features was missing end-to-end tests. And so this issue is essentially saying that that work is outstanding and needs to be done in order to assess the status of this feature. So this one is particularly worrisome because it feels like a body of work that hasn't been started and seems to be release blocking, at least according to the issuers.
As the person who's been monitoring a lot of the end-to-end tests, my general, basically 50% of all PRs that I see against end-to-end tests for new ones, believe have caused some sort of flake or had some issues. I think it's, if someone really would like to go to bat for this and say that we absolutely need this in, then I'm happy to sort of keep going. But otherwise, it seems really, really late to be doing testing for a feature. So I sort of want to put that to the release team, because my intuition is to sort of say it's really late.
Yeah, my go would be to revert personally.
Revert or disable by default. It'd be good to know like which features these were. If they're new API groups, we can turn off those API groups by default. If they're feature gated features, we can default the gates to off. I mean, a lot of the work we did around API version and feature gate stuff was so that in a case like this, it wouldn't be a revert, it would be a make this inert type of switch. I mean, this really sounds like a feature was merged before it had tests, which shouldn't happen. So rather than rushing in tests, I'd like to know like what specific features are being talked about here.
Yeah, I guess that's mirroring my concern too, is that we're going to put this body of work out there and have no idea of the sanctity of the feature functionality, and that is extremely worrisome to me.
I mean, because the concern is, we get these tests written and they merge, today, Monday, Tuesday, maybe. And best case, they show that it's working as planned. Worst case, they reveal issues. And I mean, at that point, what's our recourse? Slip the release or disable the feature?
All right. So I would love to assign a human being to bird dog this thing.
I can follow up just on the issue and sort of express our concerns that we have here.
Okay, that would be great. And so my gut feeling is that given that this feels like it was not done at the last responsible moment, it was done after that, that there has to be some sort of consequence for that in terms of either reversion or inertia or whatever we need to do around this to protect the core functionality from what could be a potentially unstable feature. So we need to make sure that's our leading position. And if they want to go to some extraordinary measures to provide that reassurance, and that the test has been well documented, it's proven, multiple successful runs in a row or whatever that they can do to assuage our concerns, then so be it. But it's going to be a heavy lift for them to make this okay, because this is not okay, at least in my opinion.
Hey, Jace, Dims. This is just bumping the version number in our YAML files. It doesn't involve actual code. So there is a PR from the feature that I was looking at, and it's just, it doesn't involve actual code change in our repository. So, and they moved this metrics server from alpha to beta, essentially, from 0.10 to 0.20.
Mm-hmm. Well, my concern with that is that, so there's a lot of ripple effects, like, for example, all the things in GKE that have fixed pinned API endpoints. The changing it from alpha to beta will break all those. There's all sorts of crazy things that can happen even with a change like that. So
it's essentially an add-on. So it's it doesn't affect, what is in the API server.
Okay.
But it will be good for them to tell us that.
Yeah, I would love for them to be doing that work
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Okay, well, great. Well, if we, like I said, if they can do the good faith effort to show us, give us visibility on this and understand the context, the implications, and also show us a proof of successful test runs that aren't going to flake out our end-to-end testing, then that's fair, right? I mean, that is a high bar, and I think it's something that's worth at least offering.
Anirudh here. Nikhil, who filed the issue, and I have been looking into a couple of these. There's one more from SIG autoscaling and one from storage, which doesn't have sufficient E2E testing. So we'll follow up on that and probably have an update on it today.
Anirudh, did I summarize it correctly that it's an add-on? So we bumped some version numbers in the YAML files for cluster add-ons?
Nikhil has more context. I think you're accurate about this one, but there's one more which also needs or seem to need E2E testing, which is also SIG autoscaling. So there's 2 SIG autoscaling and 1 SIG storage feature that is not adequately E2E tested from what I saw.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so when we go through the issues as it stands right now, the one that I found most troubling was, where is it? The latency issue, this particular issue.
Yeah.
Any updates from anybody on this? I know that you've been working with Shyam on this, DEMS, but.
When I asked Shyam this morning, he gave me the information that he's going to run bisect, and it's going to take a while to try each one and see which one of those things that I believe Jordan and Clayton had mentioned in the PR in the issue.
Okay.
Jordan, are you there? Clayton?
Yeah, we had looked through, and Clayton kind of called out a handful that could conceivably cause issues, but nothing really leapt out at us as something likely to cause the issue, especially given that some of the latency was around like read calls and not write calls. So I mean, we had a few things to possibly look at, but we really need to nail it down to a specific commit range.
Okay. So as I see the release health right now in this one specific issue, this leads me to believe that it's not really valid to cut a release candidate tonight unless somehow this gets resolved. Because cutting a release candidate with a known fatal defect is usually not a good course of action. I mean, it can give some signal, but I'm concerned that the level of latency here is such a blocker that that it's going to potentially invalidate the signal we get from the release candidate. Any thoughts on that, anyone?
Jace,
I don't think we would cut a release candidate, but I don't think this would block lifting code freeze.
Yeah, the proposal says we are cutting beta 2 from release 1.8 branch today, not RC1. So we should be fine with that, I think.
Well, actually, the time frame does say to cut RC1 tonight.
Oh, okay.
That was in the original. Schedule. So the this is the thing. Cutting a release candidate on Monday and then releasing on Wednesday feels like totally irresponsible. Not that the like one business day makes a huge difference, really, but just that feels very hurried and rushed. Especially if we expect to get some people to actually use the release candidate. I'm totally open to opinions on that.
Yeah, if you cut RC1 tonight, people are not going to try it till Monday anyway.
But realistically, if we cut RC1 on Monday, it won't be in people's hands till Monday night, Tuesday.
Right.
So, I mean,
yeah.
And I don't know, we've got some pretty enthusiastic people.
Well, and there's also the whole kubeadm thing too, right? They need the release candidate to do some of their work.
Yeah, and also, if this only affects large clusters, I think it's still fine to release a release candidate. Most people, at least who would be trying these releases out early, don't have a cluster of hundreds or thousands of nodes to be impacted by an issue that affects large clusters. Like, we would do it with a much smaller subset here at CoreOS. I imagine kubeadm is also not running tests against hundreds of nodes as well. So,
Okay.
especially given where the documentation is complete for most things, it still should be useful for people who are interested in doing early testing. Now you won't be able to do scale testing. I don't think that should block the cutting of the candidate itself.
Okay, so your vote is to get the RC out as sort of as planned this evening, and to put a caveat maybe in the community or in Kubernetes dev to say, here's a known issue with this release candidate. So if you increase SLA breaking latency at high volume, then that's a known defect.
Yeah, I would vote for that. Yeah.
Okay. That seems responsible. That seems way more responsible than pushing the release candidate off. I just want to make sure that we have some compensating controls around the release notification or whatever. So that'll be up to Adam, because when he cuts it automatically does the roll up of the changes and stuff and sends it to Kubernetes announce and Kubernetes dev. So I'll see if Adam can intercept the email and add that disclaimer at the top. So okay, so working backwards from that, then the other assumption is that we're going to open the release queue or the merge queue again today. Does anybody feel strongly that we should not do that? Okay. Then the proposal as is in the team meeting agenda, starting at 12 p.m. Pacific time, will start happening. I will coordinate with Adam asynchronously after this meeting, and we'll make sure that gets run down, and then we get regular updates in the SIG release channel.
Jace, we should edit the proposal to say RC1 from beta 2.
If you got access to the doc, can you add that, Dims?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm not sure.
Let me add it as a comment.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and just go through the rest of this stuff. This branch updates, branch health, critical build failures, that's going to start becoming important soon. And Eric, you kind of hit on this, but is there anything else you want to add about test failure triage and resolution right now?
Nothing specific.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I help you get somebody to approve the one from SIG storage?
Yeah, I think there's only one person who can approve that.
Was that Saad?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll hit Saad up privately and see if I can get some traction on that.
Yeah. Also, there were a couple upgrade tests that were claimed to be fixed, but based off of recent runs, as in yesterday, they appear not to have been. So I'm just tracking those when we get the new upgrade test results and trying to figure out if those are actually fixed or just the issue is composed.
Do you think it makes sense to wait for those results before lifting code freeze, since it's not hard to lift code freeze?
I think that we'd be doing cherry picks anyway against 1.7, so it doesn't necessarily matter to lift code freeze. Okay. This doesn't impact that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, none of the open issues seem like they would involve fixes big enough to block lifting freeze.
Yeah. Well, the API latency one hopefully won't turn into that. Or at least it won't be a nightmare to untangle whatever it is that's causing that. hopefully. Okay, testing for updates. Sen, anything you want to add on there?
Everything looks as stable as it is from the side. Yeah,
Cool.
nothing so far.
That is such good news. And thank you so much for all the hard work you and everybody has been doing there. Documentation and marketing. There's no open PRs for doc stuff right now, at least the release notes and marketing and whatnot. Still need to get SIGs to check their boxes and make sure that they have what they want in the release notes draft. If anybody wanted to volunteer to follow up with SIG leaders individually, that would be super, super helpful. I know Radhika's on it, but she's only one person, and there's like 5 different SIGs that need to be spoken to. So if anybody's feeling helpful, that would be a great place to step in.
I'm actually following up with SIG API machinery. I'm starting the PR so we can finish it up as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mehdi. That is so great. All right. Just generally speaking, I will write up an announcement to Kubernetes Dev, let them know that we're lifting code freeze this evening. Let them know the release candidate will be coming out with a caveat. And what else? What else am I forgetting, everybody?
Nothing besides the continued call to close out those last issues, pull requests, and release notes by SIG. Just because you still want to maintain people's focus on one aim.
Yeah, agreed. Okay. All right. I think that's it. Is there anything anybody else has to add or share before we adjourn? Okay. Thank you, everybody, so much. I have to say, just personally speaking, that the fact that we were able to burn down the stuff this week during the extended code freeze was extremely heartening and the representation of a lot of hard work from everybody. So thank you. It's truly appreciated by myself and everybody else on the release team. All right. Have a happy Friday. We'll be in touch in the SIG release channel.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.